We are back for another week of the bottom line on this eve of Thanksgiving.
Turkey Day.
So we're running. One man of the crew is not here with us tonight. He
Something to do with family. Family, whatever. Yeah, whatever, Chad. You want to bail on it for family? I mean, I guess it's okay.
But something tells me that he's probably going to be listening.
Oh, here's what I thoroughly expect. I thoroughly expect he's going to be listening. I thoroughly expect probably some kind of underhanded comment in the comment section, something like that. That's exactly what's going to happen. He won't stay away the entire time.
No for chance. All you listeners that are always so concerned as to where Brett's at, he's going to be on here as soon as we hit the button. But it always takes him a little bit of time to get wired. But, kind of a funny thing. When you think about, all the family coming back for Thanksgiving and you think about hitting the bar, especially in St. Louis tonight, do you realize that the number one moneymaker according to bars in St. Louis, the number one moneymaker of the whole year is the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving?
That doesn't surprise me. I would have thought maybe St. Patty's Day, but the problem is sometimes St. Patty's falls on we got to work the next day.
It must just be everybody comes back.
Well,
they run into their the guys that are still in St. Louis that haven't headed off to college or whatever.
Well, and you've got family back, so you head to the bar. Nobody has Thanksgiving breakfast. So nobody has to get up if they have.
They only have to be able to eat. They can get greasy.
Right.
Food. They don't have to eat till like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, I can get up and I can eat at noon and then go to somewhere else and eat at, 6 o'clock, call it good. There's no rush in there. There's no problem with going to the bar that time of night. But here we are, dedicated. Not at the bar. And not using family excuses, Chad.
And if anybody's been listening at all, the UFL has come out with some exciting news. The expansion is coming. That's going to be the first topic we hit when we come back.
And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream rises to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
So I don't know if anybody got a chance to listen to Brett on Tuesday night. We had some bottom line technical difficulties, so Brett was winging it from the double wide deer stand, and but for those of you that maybe didn't hear him on Tuesday night and have been living behind a rock, Brett, why don't you give us the big update, exciting news from the UFL, and then we'll have a little roundtable on where would you go.
Well, finally, we've got something exciting to talk about. Spring football fans and UFL fans, that's the number one subject everybody wants to talk about is expansion. When are we going to get some of these teams back? When are we going to go out west? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? Well, the league involved us in this. What was it, Ed? Early Monday. And then proceeded to make a post on all their social media platforms wanting input from the fans on where to go. Where should we go? What city should we add to the mix for 2026? Their plans are to add 2 teams for 2026, 2 for 2027, and at least get to 12, that number 12 that they almost originally started with to begin with. That's where they were at when they did the merger. It was rushed. They cut it down to 8 teams in 8 cities, got it through regulatory, and 6 weeks later the league started. So it was very rushed, thrown together, no marketing. We all know the story. Well, now things are starting to fall in place. So got a ton of exciting news, lots of rumors. I know that Seattle is big time in the mix. They were one of the cities that was going to be part of the original 12 from what I gather. Also, Canton/Columbus. I had some information for a year now that I've been holding on to, and from what I gather, it was a done deal that Canton was going to be one of the venues for the original merger. Of course, that was one of them that got dropped when they went to 8 teams. Supposedly, they've got a sweetheart deal worked out with the city of Canton and with the Hall of Fame. I gather that the team is going to be called Ohio. I'm not sure about the actual name. I know from what I gather, they were looking at maybe making the Pittsburgh Maulers the Ohio Maulers. I know they've done some patents since then, and we found some online, gosh, probably 6, 7, 8 months ago, and it also included Nashville. I'm hearing Nashville could be one of the 12. Louisville's a hot name. Orlando, going back to Orlando. And then one name that has stuck out all along, which I'm surprised was not considered with the original USFL and XFL, is San Diego. Of course, we all know San Diego is very similar to St. Louis. They had an NFL team taken from them. They've got a new stadium out there, Snapdragon Stadium, where San Diego State Aztecs play. And there's been a lot of people in that area and some power brokers in San Diego that has been pushing for a spring football team. I know that Salt Lake City is even in the mix. They just got an NHL team. They had a team, the Salt Lake City Stallions, in 2019 with the AAF. But their mayor, all the people in that area with money is pushing hard for a team. I don't know if the city in the area will support it. I know they were very, very low in attendance for the AAF back in 2019, but maybe things have changed. Ed, do you want to throw anything else in there?
Well,
what all we've been talking about?
As we've been talking about, as you bring up different sites, I know that one of the cities that seems to be common across the conversation always seems to be the Seattle Sea Dragons as being one of the 2 teams to come back initially. I guess I have my thoughts on that. Being a bean counter, being the numbers guy like I am, they said one of the reasons why they were dropped with the UFL merger was the fact that how expensive the cost was of travel to Seattle, sitting out there on the West Coast by themselves. So as we talk about maybe 2 teams in 2026 and 2 more teams in 2027, if money is still an object to the league, to me, Seattle has to become a package deal to where if you're going to bring Seattle back, you need to pair them up with another team that's on the West Coast or close to the West Coast so that you have, some shorter distances to travel. If you bring back a Seattle and you bring back you bring on Canton, now you have a Canton team and a Seattle team. Man, Seattle's still sitting out there on an island. You talk about San Diego, you talk about Las Vegas.
Salt Lake City.
You're thinking West Coast. What's the difference between San Diego and Seattle?
Oakland.
Look at the map. Let me pull up the map here just to show you, even though it's West Coast teams, when you actually look at the map and you look at Arlington to San Diego is a hop, skip, and a jump. Arlington to Seattle is not. Another thing in Seattle, now, don't get me wrong. When I say this stuff, I'm saying I would love to have Seattle back in the league because Seattle was an exciting team. They had a good fan base. But if you remember, since the Seattle Sea Dragons lost their spot, now they've got the Kraken playing hockey out there. And rumor has it they're going to be getting an NBA team back. The NBA will be playing at the same time the spring football is going on. So the only thing I'm saying is if you don't make them a package deal and you put them out there on an island like they were before, and everybody liked to say that the schedule was the issue in Seattle and they had terrible games. That's why their attendance was so bad. But yet you're willing to take them back, put them on an island, and now they've also got hockey and potentially basketball to compete with for fan base.
Well, and Ed, you're right. Chris has been calling Louisville and Canton since May. When you look at that map, a Pittsburgh, and Ohio, and Orlando, Louisville, all those make sense because you look at how it kind of makes an arc there, and everything is southeast of that arc. I mean, an Oklahoma team. Oklahoma loves their football. In Omaha.
I think Omaha's a nice fit. Here's the deal. Sure, viewership is very important. Let me take this down because I want to bring Brett back in on this. Viewership, we all know, pays a lot of bills. There's no doubt about that. But we also see that they want to put butts in the seats, right? So let's talk for a second strictly about putting butts in the seats. If you don't bring a West Coast team in with Seattle and you leave Seattle out there on an island, their attendance is basically going to be their fan base.
Right.
The visiting crowd is not going to be there.
There won't be anybody there.
Now,
putting a team in Louisville, putting a team in
Canton,
Oklahoma City, putting
Orlando,
a team in Nashville, you're putting a team that's in a location that's drivable for even the visiting fan base. Because don't kid yourself, when St. Louis, this last year, Memphis played in St. Louis. This year, St. Louis is traveling to Memphis. So now not only are you going to have butts in the seats with the Memphis fan base, but now you've also got within 4 hours a St. Louis fan base that can travel to that game. So now you're putting butts in the seats from both fan bases. To me, if you're talking about putting butts in the seats, if Seattle is not going to be paired with another team that's from that region, they need to wait till 2027 and put in 2 teams that are going to be geographically like that,
Geographically.
in a position to where you're just drawing the fan bases closer. You're just getting them all working together, getting them all traveling to other venues versus just continuing to put teams out on an island. Because right now, if I want to go to a game, like I went to the Michigan game, Michigan was 9 hours on the road. If I was going to go to Birmingham, I had to cancel, but that was going to be 7.5 hours to Birmingham. So you're talking about all these long trips to get the other fan bases commingling. To me, it makes more sense to put teams within the geographical area. I understand you want to try and get United States wide, but you also want to put butts in the seats. So
well, and here's a question. So, what do you guys think about, an Oakland team?
I'm very Oakland, and I've mentioned Oakland repeatedly. I've heard Oakland. Let me tell you this. I've talked to some people that are in the know here recently, and there's a problem with Oakland, which we're all aware of. It's not a safe, good area. A. B. That stadium's probably 25 years older than I am. I'm not saying it's in disrepair, but that's an issue, and it was made for baseball, not football. I look, would the city of Oakland and surrounding areas support a team in Oakland? Absolutely. That might be the only other city that could rival St. Louis when it comes to rabid fans, and they've had everything taken away from them. But that's the 2 concerns, and I know for a fact that the league has sent off about 20 RFQs to cities all over the country. They're wanting responses on venues, proposals from the mayor, all the city councils. I know that they're talking about Vegas again. Keep in mind also with Portland. Portland would be an instant rivalry with Seattle. They've got rabid fans. I know that the guy that owns the Portland Timbers soccer team, he redid that whole venue up there, and it is fantastic. But he's dead set against football, supposedly. But now I understand that he's got a lot of the high school playoff games played at that stadium. And I do know for a fact that the USFL reached out to him and to Portland before they started back up in 2022. That's another option. One thing on Seattle, real quick, Ed, and I'll shut up. That was part of my concern when Seattle's attendance wasn't great in 2022. They just got the Kraken in the year before. The Kraken's been there, I think, since 2021. And also now, like, one thing that the mayor reminded me of on X the other day, I saw him. They had 2 or 3 Thursday night games back then too, and they were bad weather games. That did not help their attendance at all. And then one more thing, the Vegas situation. You guys remember what a mess it was and how they ended up at the minor league. It was a mess. It was not a good look for spring football or for the XFL. Well, guess what? The sale is on with Sam Boyd Stadium where UNLV used to play. Now they play at where the Raiders play. If that sale goes through, that stadium will be open. And Sam Boyd Stadium is where the Vegas Outlaws played back in 2001 for the original XFL. There's so many moving parts right now going on. I mean, we're spraying the walls, but the 2 names that I keep hearing for 2026 is Seattle and Canton. I do know without a shadow of a doubt that both those teams and both those cities were going to be in the UFL last year in the original 12. but they didn't make the cut when they brought it back down to 8. I don't. Things are so fluid right now; they could absolutely change a half a dozen times between now and May or June next year when they make these announcements. But they have sent RFQs to a lot of locations, and I keep seeing online more responses out of bring Seattle back, Seattle back. I've been seeing that for a year, and it's been crazy what I've seen on Facebook and X about all the Seattle comments. But you know who's coming in second and third? Y'all just mentioned them. Omaha and Oklahoma City. I think Omaha's got a venue that could possibly happen, but Oklahoma City, I don't know where they would play. Don't they have a soccer stadium, or they're in the process of building the soccer stadium there? I wish I'd have done my research.
They could play in the stadium Oklahoma State plays in, right?
That's yeah. And rename them the Gamblers. I was in the casino business for 7 years, and there's 20 casinos in the state of Oklahoma. It would make perfect sense.
Well, you remember, Brent, last year when they did they gave a list of cities by viewership.
Right.
Oklahoma City made that list, and they didn't even have a team.
Right.
So Oklahoma City wants a team bad. So
yeah,
so I hate to see it that they're going to go 2-2, because I think you could make a big argument for 4, but I'm willing to walk before we run.
Absolutely.
But
well, to me, I think the only way that anything goes in the West Coast, and I could be wrong, maybe Seattle is the number 1 target. I don't know, but if you were to make like a Las Vegas, Oakland in 2026.
Or Oakland, San Diego,
right? But I'm just giving examples, and then a San Diego, Seattle. If you want to include Seattle, something like that. You got to have, because that would be. That could be a division all in itself. If you wanted 3 divisions,
and have those 2 teams hubbed out there.
Yes,
to limit the travel.
Yes, because then you would at least you'd have 6 of Seattle's games in that proximity on the West Coast, rather than if Seattle was in with St. Louis and it would just make more sense.
Well, do you remember when last year when they negotiate with Allegiant Stadium? Because we've got Albert here. Says, what about Allegiant Stadium? Well, the problem with that, if I remember right, is they wanted to charge big bucks to use that stadium.
Well, from what I gather, when XFL came back and Rock and Danny and Redbird, this is my understanding. They had a verbal. Supposedly, Rock and Mark Davis had a handshake verbal. When they were going to come back in 2021 or 2022, and you remember they put it off a year. Well, in that year time, they go back to Mark, and Mark basically recanted on the deal. He, there wasn't nothing on paper, wasn't nothing in writing, and I heard that fell through at the 11th hour. That's why they ended up scrambling and ended up in the venue that's why Vegas ended up such a mess. I'm very concerned about Vegas with attendance. I'm just going to put it out there. It's just my opinion, and what do I know? But there's 12 cities that I would much rather have these 4 teams in than Vegas. Vegas,
I would agree.
Other than Salt Lake City, Vegas is my last choice.
Yeah.
What I saw in 2019 with the AAF, when Birmingham was averaging 18 or 17,000 at Legion Field, which is a dump in a bad part of town, and over in Salt Lake City, they're averaging 4,500. That put a real bad taste in my mouth for going to ever go to Salt Lake City.
Well, Mike weighs in with Portland and Seattle.
Yeah,
being the first 2 West Coast teams.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that, and I could agree with that. It just comes down to, well, then you're telling Canton, Ohio, which sounds like is where they want a team for sure.
Right.
I still say then you tell Canton they wait till 2026 27. Well, is that realistic? Because doesn't it seem like that, as Brett, as you've been kind of talking to some people behind the scenes and stuff, that it almost seems like the UFL league has some kind of an influx of money coming in. It's some, whether it's an additional investor or something, because it sure seems like it's either was a requirement of the merger that we raise from 8 to 10 to 12 or whatever that is, or they've come into some more cash, because it's just, if you look at the track record of the UFL, it just seems like they have not been this forthcoming to be this aggressive. So,
Well, I had a conversation with Moose in Birmingham 3 weeks ago, and then with Skip Holtz, and they Russ got up there and talked. I didn't talk to him individually, but they're very pleased with the TV ratings and what they're seeing on the social media footprints. The signs are there, and they know what the problem was last year, but they had to. We had to play a season. We couldn't put it off another year. It had to be played, and it was rushed. And again, from what I gather, there will be 10 sets of people at every city this year in marketing and ticket sales. And that's every city: St. Louis, Memphis, Birmingham, Detroit. And that was in the budget, from what I'm told, was in the budget that they put in last year for this year. Well, so that's going to make a big difference on ticket sales and momentum. There wasn't the events, the fireworks shows and things that the USFL and XFL had in their original seasons. It was just bare bones last year. But they are seeing the positivity, and they're excited. But they know they don't need to jump from 8 to 12 overnight, or jump 8 to 16. That's why they negotiated and had to go back and rework everything with regulatory. So there's so many moving parts right now. And again, like I say, I'm bothering people. I'm constantly calling and texting and messaging and trying to find out what I can find out, and pretty much lining up with what I keep hearing over and over again. From people that run the Hall of Fame and the mayor, the city councilman, they are dead set and was disappointed, supposedly, that they were not part of the original UFL season, but they understood, considering they had to cut from 16 teams to 8 teams. They understood that. I would be floored if one of the teams is not in that area in 2026. Now, keep in mind, Cleveland and Columbus had fantastic TV ratings with XFL 2020. I think it's one of the top 3 TV markets. They were a top 5 TV market, I want to say, with the USFL's original season. The Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, that's a huge football area. Now, again, the second team, it would make a logistical sense, go ahead, like you said, and do Louisville and Canton. But I think they're pretty set on Seattle.
What do you say to this, Brett? Albert says Birmingham should be ashamed of themselves with the poor attendance for their home games. They should have been up there with St. Louis numbers, but this city is saturated with excuse makers. I smell like a I don't know, LSU, Auburn.
Now, I know Albert. He's in our Stallions group, and he's one of the few that have agreed with me about that. But like I said, I've got to stop that and clean my stuff up. And Albert, I mentioned this to Ed because Ed wasn't really aware of what went down with the AAF in 2019. If any of you guys have not seen, and Eric, Ed, y'all have got to watch this. If you're a football fan, if you're a spring football fan, you've got to watch this on YouTube. It's called Broken Alliances. It's a documentary about everything that went down with the AAF. And what the AAF did to Memphis, San Antonio and Birmingham, they all but ruined spring football for a while. That has a big part in it. They left hundreds and hundreds of businesses in each city holding the bag, and it made news for weeks and months in Birmingham, in San Antonio, in Memphis. Hell, the players came back to their hotel rooms at practice when they canceled everything, and their bags were out in the parking lot. There was people that posted ads. It was all over, Fox 6 on your side in Birmingham. They really gave spring football in those three cities a big black eye. And I'm not making an excuse, but I do think that is part of it. And another thing, Albert, in Birmingham, what I've noticed is we're so used to Legion Field and in the area at then, and I don't want to knock it. Yeah, it was a great documentary, Mike. Everybody needs to watch it. I might watch it tonight. That Protective Stadium is a lot nicer. It's a lot newer, and it's in a hell of a lot better area. It's right there next to Legacy Arena. Used to be the Civic Center. It's right there next to Top Golf. I have not once feared getting knocked over the head, anything happening to any of my vehicles, no matter day, night, what time. I have not had one issue at Protective Stadium. But because Birmingham and certain areas of Birmingham have a bad reputation, I do feel like that is some of the attendance problems. I feel like some of it is the black eye from the AAF. But I agree with you. We've got to get attendance up, and I think we will. I really do. Having boots on the ground in these cities this year is going to make a difference.
What do you know about Oakland Ballers baseball stadium? Do you know anything about that, Brett?
I do not, unfortunately. I'm not familiar with the area. I'm just, familiar with what has happened in Oakland and the shape that the stadium's in. Hell, they had Oakland A's fans ripping the seats out and taking them with them at the last game this past spring. I don't know what kind of condition it's in. What do you say?
Chris obviously is not a big fan of St. Louis.
What do you say? What do you say? I didn't read it.
Then it would be filled with St. Louis fans. Ugh.
Well, I'll say this. There was I heard the numbers, and I was at the game, and that was very inaccurate. There was probably 200 to 300 St. Louis fans at the Battlehawks and Stallions game, which was, hey, we appreciate it. It was a great turnout. But I imagine it would be double that in Memphis this year, because Memphis is a lot closer to St. Louis than Birmingham. So they might have 500 or 1,000.
Well, there's already plans underway for a giant tailgate in Memphis of St. Louis fans coming down. So that's what I'm talking about. Is you talk about putting teams in place that are just closer geographical.
For that reason,
I got you.
You can get fan bases coming from multiple areas and filling those stadiums up even more than every.
Well, and then the biggest thing that I think is important for spring football attendance and otherwise is, it's almost like using an example. What's the proximity, Brett, from Auburn to Alabama when there's a big game?
3 hours.
Okay, 3 hours. So it's a 3-hour drive for Auburn fans or Alabama, whoever's at home and on the road.
Right.
How many more people for that rivalry game are there than maybe your average game?
Man, it's not a lot because each university's only allocated so many tickets. I mean each.
But let me give you an example. So Iowa and Iowa State, they're a couple hours apart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've been to a lot of Iowa State games. When it's Iowa State, there's only 65,000 that can sit inside, give or take. But there's 110,000 people outside around the stadium.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is it's up to the UFL to create
that type of atmosphere.
Create that kind of stuff where you have not 1,000 people from St. Louis coming down to tailgate. you've got 5,000 people that are coming down from St. Louis, or you have, from San Antonio to Arlington or whatever it is, to create those, atmospheres and those, types of setups to generate.
And it takes time for rivalries too. I see a lot of USFL fans keep talking about New Orleans Breakers. Let's bring New Orleans. And I've heard New Orleans is one of the cities too. I know the USFL, before they decided to merge with the XFL, was real close on Tulane Stadium and moving New Orleans, of course, the Breakers to Tulane Stadium. And because the Breakers was a natural rivalry with Birmingham. Look, I'm not guaranteeing anything. When these 4 new teams come out, hell, it might be New Orleans and New York and Portland and Vegas. Nobody knows, but if you guys look at the page and see our top contenders that right now, that's what I keep hearing. And that's what I keep being told is the ones that are in the running right. They're in the lead in the clubhouse, so to speak. Now, what's going to happen when they have these meetings and these negotiations between now and then? I would almost fall to the floor if Canton's not one of the additional 4 from all the information I'm told.
With that said, I think we probably have reached the point where we need to move on to college.
Right. Do you have those viewership numbers I sent you, Ed? Did you upload them?
Yes. Let me throw those up.
I think this is pretty important, and I was told this is pretty important because viewership does matter to them as much as attendance. I mean, it's right there.
Is this what you're talking about, Brett?
Right. Now, what I'm told, folks, is that the HH rating is the most important. I believe that is the percentage of people in that city. Of course, the numbers are going to be different. Like, see, St. Louis is at 1.49, and they average 28.4, where Birmingham is 1.65. We had the highest HH rating in the UFL, but we had less people because Birmingham's a lot smaller than St. Louis. But supposedly what they're looking at more than anything is the HH rating. And that is where Cleveland and Columbus cleaned up in 2020 and with the USFL's first 2 years. That's one of the reasons they're pretty set on that. But look at some of the other venues. People keep bringing up the Denver Gold at 0.44. Now, keep in mind, that city doesn't have a team. Tampa's at 0.38. Let me see. Philadelphia 0.36. Chicago 0.40. And look at the size of Chicago. Of course, Detroit's got a team. Look at Atlanta at 0.61. I haven't even heard Atlanta is in the mix. I know they wouldn't let them play at Truist Field where the Braves play. And then they have the huge dome where the Falcons play, and they have so many SEC championships and bowl games there. But look at the TV rating there. Where else? New York, 0.23, but just imagine the population of that city. So they're looking at this. I wish I had more than the top 15. I'll probably try to pull up XFL's TV ratings from 2020. 2022, and then maybe the USFL TV ratings from 2022 and have those for next week. So they are looking at these numbers as well. So if you see any of the cities on here that doesn't already have a team, they are being sent an RFQ wanting some information and wanting a presentation on what the city would be willing to do, with the venue and all that good stuff.
Pretty interesting stuff.
And Oklahoma City was way up there with the XFL as well in 2020 and in 2022. I don't know if they're in the top 20. I don't know, but Oklahoma City was way up there on those lists.
Albert says this, and we've talked about this multiple times. St. Louis is putting us all to shame. You have to take St. Louis out.
Yeah, you do. It's a different animal, Albert, because it's I want to say the population within an hour of downtown St. Louis is 3 times what it is in Birmingham. And look, you've seen me at all the Birmingham games. I run that big Birmingham group. I've taken a lot of flack for trying to hold Birmingham accountable. But when a city's 3 times our size, in my eyes, Birmingham should be averaging 15. I'm just going to put it out there. Can we average 30? Yeah, I think we can. But 15 right now in this economy and with everything that's happened over the last 4 or 5 years, to me, would be more practical, and I think we can get to that. But St. Louis is a lot larger. I mean, my God, they've got every sport there imaginable. And I'm not making excuses because, there ain't probably a half a dozen Birmingham fans that like me because I have gave them a lot of flack over the lack of attendance. But we were in the middle of the pack, and yeah, I would love to be there with St. Louis, but they are a pink elephant. They are a unicorn.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, in 5 or 10 years when we build, look, I love comparing the spring football to the CFL, except there's one big thing. CFL's been around 125 years. You know what I mean? And spring football kept shutting down. We've got to have some continuity before we expect all
Staying
these people
power.
to start investing in these teams.
Correct. I mean, the thing about excuse me, the thing about the UFL is this. I love the concept. It's football. It gives your, Ed may have the numbers. It gives players that maybe didn't get a shot in the NFL or maybe got a shot or looking for another shot, this and that. It gives those opportunities. The CFL has one thing going for it that the UFL doesn't. The CFL is not directly competing for people's attention. And I realize it's in the spring, but when the UFL starts, there's a lot of people that say, well, yeah, I'm kind of footballed out, man. The NFL just got over, college is over. So the CFL is its own animal. But I think if the UFL can show staying power, they can expand.
Right.
The television viewership continues to get stronger and stronger.
Right.
The attendance, the butts in the seats continues to get stronger and stronger. Then I think that's when you start to see the coin flip a little bit. But the biggest part, I think, is obviously it's going in the right direction according to whatever metrics they're using.
Yeah.
Or they would not be talking about expansion.
Right.
So we can all take, and as kind of a final word, we can all take away some serious positives from that. Because that means that they believe it has staying power, and the first year of the UFL went either good or better than expected. I would say because they're looking to expand in 2026, that it probably went better than expected. And if it goes even better in 2025, you could see a catapult from that point. But it's got to show staying power. It can't be here for a couple years, we're gone again. And then in 10 years, somebody decides to pick the flag up and try to carry it. It's got to show staying power for this thing to really build itself, period.
Right. And they're aware of that. And I've had so many conversations behind the scenes with some people about this. And thankfully, guys, we've got so many guys and so many people involved with this that it's working. I've been a spring football guy most of my life, but I absolutely fell in love with it in 2019. And this is the first real good, strong sign, in my life when it comes to, hey, not only we're trending in the right direction, let's get some more teams out there.
Right.
And if there's a lot of this smoke, there's some fire. And I can't emphasize this enough. They're happy with TV and they're happy with social media, and they know their shortfall with attendance and part of the reasoning on that. So
final word, schedule. Look for the schedule to come out in late December. December 15th is kind of the drop dead date for the soccer venue or soccer to put out their schedule. You've got DC and Arlington, I believe, are the two stadiums where soccer holds a priority. So
right.
those schedules have to be released first before the UFL can release theirs. So look for the schedule for the UFL in late December which will be a huge improvement from last year. So be looking for that. So maybe under the Christmas tree, you're putting gift certificates under the tree versus tickets, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was at this time last year. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we are getting into college. One thing I can say to kick off the college talk,
Restroom break, fellas.
as Brett was right on the button with one of his posts, last weekend was a bloodbath. We had a lot of teams that went down this last weekend, and it's really put quite a shuffle into the college brackets. While we're waiting for Brett to come back on, let me put those brackets up, and Eric and I can part the Red Sea here.
This is a sad college football scenario. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you right now. So right now, you've got Oregon out of the Big Ten in the number 1 slot. You have Texas out of the SEC in the 2 slot. Miami out of the ACC in the 3 slot. Somehow, Boise State in the 4 spot out of the Mountain West. Then you have Ohio State out of the Big Ten, Penn State out of the Big Ten, Notre Dame out of the they don't play in an actual conference. And then you have Georgia, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, and then Arizona State. I see flaws for all of this. I mean, and I'll pose to you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Eric. Arizona State is actually leading the Big 12 at this point, right?
Correct.
So not only do they have Arizona State as an automatic bid, of course, since they're leading the Big 12, but they've went ahead and they've put them as a number 12 seed. So they're basically saying that the leader of the Big 12 is really not worthy of being in the tournament. Is what they're saying.
The amount of bias that I see in the college football, for example, and I hate to say this without Brett being here, but when he comes back, we'll definitely talk about it, I'm sure. But they have Alabama in the 13th spot. Okay, what does that mean? What that means to me is if Alabama beats Auburn this week, they will be sitting at 9-3. Well, what happens if somebody on that current Week 14 projection loses? What does that mean? You know what it means to me? It means that the people on this committee have an absolute bias toward the SEC and biases against other teams or other conferences or whatever. And I'll tell you why. As we talked about last week, Boise State plays in a conference that as a conference has a below 500 record, 47% prior to this past week's games. The Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC are all somewhere between 56 and 58% winning percentage. So you take that into effect, and yet you still find Boise State. Again, I think they have a bias for Boise State. We can go back to the miracle against Oklahoma back in the day, and Boise State always kind of being there. The whole setup, everybody thought, and I was one of them, so I have to retract it. And I'll leave you with this, Ed. I thought that if we expanded, when they said 12 teams, I thought, man, they can't get this wrong. They can cover their bases. No. They 100% cannot hide their biases. And you have said in the past that you would not be surprised if a 3-loss SEC team gets in there. And I'll tell you why that is bull. I can handle an SEC team losing a big game. So Alabama beat Georgia. So that's a big game loss for Georgia. But then Alabama turns around and loses to Tennessee. Okay, that's a big game. I can handle that. I will even give them the mulligan against Vanderbilt. But now you want me to give any legitimacy to this college football bracket after Alabama goes into Oklahoma and gets freaking boat raced, and you're telling me that I'm supposed to accept the fact that potentially Alabama could be in this bracket over a 1-loss Big 12, a 1-loss ACC team, whatever. You're high. I'm not. There's no reason why you should get 2 mulligans. Here's another thing, because Ed, you've talked about this at length, and then I will let you go. It is not the Big 12's fault that the SEC poached Texas and Oklahoma. It's not our fault. It's not the Big 12's fault. And here's the deal. Well, but I mean, we have tough schedules. That's on you. You have been poaching good teams for a long time. That's your problem. Get better. But a 3-loss team has absolutely zero business being in the college football playoff, and the SEC bias is 100% there.
Well,
okay. I'll bring Brett in so Brett can hear.
Okay.
Even though he's behind it.
Let me take this down for a minute so we can get him in here.
Sorry, I went on the rant, Brett. You missed the rant. It is what it is.
You know how I've been talking about the possibility of a 3-loss SEC team getting in, and you guys all telling me I'm crazy. The scenario is presenting itself that we could see not 1 but 2 3-loss SEC teams in there, because if Texas A&M beats Texas this weekend, they're automatically in. And if one of those other teams stumbles, Alabama wins over Auburn, Alabama's the first team out, they automatically become the first team in. You're looking at Alabama being in there with 3 losses, and you're looking at Texas A&M being in there with 3 losses. So just like I've said all along, I'll believe it when I see it that there's not a 3-loss.
If that happens, the college football playoff is a joke. Period. End of story.
Well, I'm sorry. I heard what you said about get better. Well, maybe the Big 12 ought to get better.
No. You guys brought in Texas. You brought in Oklahoma. You've created these mega schedules, if that's what you want to call them. If you lose 3 games, that's on you.
Well, I was the first one to say that if Alabama lost 3 games, we don't deserve to be in, and I'm sitting here right now telling you we don't deserve to be in.
I've been a bigger apologist for the SEC than Brett has.
Yeah, I'm not defending it, but the problem is, unfortunately, and that was one of the reasons I was rooting for Colorado, because I thought at the time they were so hot and they were going to represent the Big 12 in a good way, but And another problem is that whether we like it or not, the ACC is way down this year, fellas. I mean, they are. And I'm not saying it's right, but like Clemson is actually above Alabama. I think aren't they? They're 13th and Bama's 14th, right?
No,
In the
Alabama's
playoff
the first
rank.
one out. Alabama's at 13 right now.
Well, I don't know if it's biased, but look,
It's biased.
we're the top 3 loss team in the SEC, and where that's the bias is we've had so much recent success. And I agree with you that don't mean anything about this year, but I'm just saying if you want to just throw Alabama out in the yard, that's fine. Who else would? Who in your eyes would take the place of them? That's the problem.
But listen, that to me that is no. To me, that is not the point. The point is, and I've heard this from Joel Klatt. I've heard this from a lot of people.
Right.
Alabama is a blue blood, just like we have all the blue bloods in basketball and things like that.
Right.
In football, Alabama is a blue blood.
Right.
So just like Kansas, for example, in basketball,
Right.
Alabama gets certain ticks in football.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, and thankfully I've seen other fan bases mention it. We ain't got no damn favoritism by referees this year.
Well,
and I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying.
Speaking,
you're right. You're right, Eric. No, hey, look, I've watched sports my whole life, and I see blue bloods in certain sports get favoritism over others, whether it's basketball or football or baseball. I mean, you're right when it comes to that. The only thing, and I didn't have time to analyze it because I honestly, in my eyes, Alabama ain't getting in. They don't deserve to get in. I'm going to tell you, we got a good shot of getting beat this weekend by Oklahoma, and all that being null and void. So just throw Alabama out. Throw Alabama out.
You mean
all the other teams behind us have 3 losses. So are they going to deserve to be in, but Alabama didn't? That's what I'm saying. Who are you going to replace? Just forget Alabama. Pretend we're at number 18. Go down the list. Who's number 14? Who are you going to put in there?
Well, right, but think about this. So using my criteria, there should only be one Big 12 team this year, because whoever wins the Big 12 is going to have 2 losses, and the second one's going to have 3.
I was hoping, hey, if Arizona was to win out and play Colorado, and Colorado wasn't to lose last weekend, I wouldn't have a problem with having them both in. But Colorado's just not good enough.
And the thing of it is, but the thing of it is, and this is the problem I have, if you want to argue that Alabama is better than some of these other teams, that's fine.
Depends on what Saturday it is.
Right, but what I'm saying is that gets thrown out the damn window when you put Boise State in the 4 slot.
Oh, I can't justify that at all because, look, they beat Wyoming by 3 or 4 points. And, look, I'm a huge Ashton Gentry fan. Genty. I've watched him from week 1, and he was my Heisman favorite up until 2 weeks ago, and now I've got the kid from Colorado with a slight edge. But I love watching the kid play, but is Boise State good enough to be in the playoffs? Hell no, they're not. And I don't know why they're in front. Honestly, I thought the Big 4 were the automatic 4 bids. I didn't know they could replace an ACC or a Big 12 team and put a Mountain West team in there. That makes no sense to me because right now, Arizona State would kick Boise State's ass.
Correct.
And I'm just being honest with you.
So I'm looking at this.
So not only does Arizona State get,
I don't know how Boise State's in there.
If Arizona State is the winner of the Big 12 or leading the Big 12 right now,
right,
they're not only slid out of the top 4 and put as a number 5, they're slid out of the top 4 and put in as a number 12. So
and got going to Ohio State.
Arizona State is really not worthy, but the only reason they're in there is because they are in first in the Big 12 and they have to have them in there. Basically,
with my football eyes, which means nothing, and I thought this committee were football guys and girls that watched all the games and analyzed and I'm telling you right now, if you had a best out of 10, Arizona State beat Boise State's ass about 8 times, and I'm just being 100% with you. So I don't know how in the world Arizona State's not at 4, and Boise, or if you're not happy with
over Miami
6 or 7, and put Boise State at 12, because out of those 12 teams, there's no doubt in my mind that Boise State should be number 12.
And the thing about it is, I'll answer Albert's question. How come Boise State doesn't belong?
They ain't beat nobody.
Albert, other than the loss that they had to Oregon, which they did play them tough, they haven't played anyone. So for the same argument, if and I'm not saying you're making this argument, Albert, but for the same argument that somebody might say, well, the Big 12, it is the argument times 3 against Boise State.
I'm sorry, the Big 12's a hell of a lot better than the Mountain West, and that's just a fact. So, I mean, I couldn't agree with Eric more about the Boise State subject. I get him with the Alabama subject, and look, I'm proud. I live 5 miles from Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm a huge Bama fan, but I'm also as real as the day is long, and that's why the Stallions fans don't like me. Alabama don't belong. We don't. We if we would have lost a nail biter in Oklahoma and got screwed on that one call, I'd say, now look, that was, but we didn't. You can't wait till the start of the fourth quarter and start playing a game. You can't do that. Alabama doesn't belong. But now if they get in, will I be pulling for them? Well, hell yeah. But my thing is, I don't know if you go through 13, 14, 15, and 16 right now on the power rankings, I don't know who you would replace Alabama with, that you could justify belongs. You know what I mean? That was all I'd say.
And I 100% agree with you. Ed, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. I
was going to change the subject to something else in college, so go ahead.
Well, but I 100% agree, Brett, but here's the deal. I really, truly do feel like, and this is, I know they say, well, Jesus, we went from 4 to 12. Aren't you satisfied now? No, because there's no structure and you haven't taken the human error out of it. You have made the human error and the human biases to the blue bloods still poignant. And what I mean by that is when you see an Alabama sitting in that 13th spot with 3 losses, again, you lose to Tennessee, that's a big game. I'll give them that. I'll even give them a mulligan against Vandy. But you go in and get boat raced by Oklahoma, you don't deserve to be there. Yeah. If you look at Boise State, okay, you lost to Oregon by 3 early in the season. You haven't played anybody in 2 months.
And you did win last week, but you beat Wyoming by 4 damn points.
Wyoming 17-13, I think, was the final. So what I'm saying is, the only way that you can eliminate the majority of the biases, you're never going to eliminate all of it because you have the committee, is if you say, because I do see some of these, Lane Kiffin said at Ole Miss, I don't want to play in the SEC championship because that could give us our 3rd loss and that may screw us.
Right.
I don't want to see the championships go away. But what I think they should do, just to keep it the way it is they've got to do a couple of things. One, either you have to designate that whoever makes it to the championship game, the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC, those are your top 8 spots. You can rank them however you want. And then you have your floater from the Mountain West, whoever the highest ranked is out of the MAC, the Mountain West, whatever, that's your number 9. And then you have your teams that the 3 teams we want to make sure Alabama gets in there, whoever it is, you put them in there. Or, and this is where, I mean, this is where it's a joke. If we had the bracket back up where I could pinpoint it, but they need to set it up like the NFL sets it up if they're going to do it. After round number 1, you have your 4 byes, which is crime that Boise State has one. But you have your 4 byes, and then you have your 8 teams that play behind them. Can we not re-rank them after that? The NFL does it. Whoever the lower seed is goes to number 1, and then the next seed goes to number 2, and then so on and so forth. Can we not do that? Because if you look at, can you bring that bracket up real quick, Ed, again? Or I can grab it too, if I have it.
It's right here.
Okay, you got it? Okay. So let's look at it. Do you honest to God believe that when you're number one Oregon, would you, A, want to face the winner of Georgia, Tennessee, B, face the winner of Arizona State, Ohio State, C, face the winner of Indiana, Penn State, who hasn't beat anybody, and when they do, they get killed, or D, the winner of SMU, Notre Dame? Who would you rather face? Instead, you're probably, based on the way the college football committee has it set up, you're probably looking at one of the toughest games coming out of the second round in the quarterfinals that could possibly be put up there. Would you rather be staring Tennessee and Georgia in the face or Indiana and Penn State in the face? Yeah. I could answer that. I could answer that pretty easy. I would much rather have the winner of Indiana and Penn State over Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah. But looking at this too, you talk about how you don't want to see the conference championships go away. To me, the only relevance the conference championship games have is if a conference has two divisions where one doesn't play the other, and so you have a conference championship game at the end to determine who the winner is. Because tell me how this is fair. Oregon goes against Ohio State in the regular season. Oregon beats Ohio State. So they're sitting at number one. They're a legitimate conference leader the whole season. So now it goes into a conference championship game, Oregon against Ohio State. Ohio State beats Oregon. Ohio State gets all the glory. They get the bye week in the college playoffs. They get the conference championship when, wait a minute, Oregon beat them too. So Oregon's victory over Ohio State has less value in the regular season than Ohio State beating Oregon in the conference championship because Ohio State walks away with the whole bag.
Yeah, you're right.
They walk away with the conference championship. They walk away with a bye, top 4 seed. When Oregon beat Ohio State too, they ended up 1-1.
The problem with the way this is set up is if we want to make the regular season mean something, you can take that down now, Ed. If we want to make the regular season mean something, even though I do enjoy the conference championships, then we have to make it mean something. And so Alabama's 3 losses during the regular season, that has to have a negative impact on it. But when you talk about Lane Kiffin saying as Ole Miss, he don't want to go to the conference championship because we don't want to get that loss. Well, if the conference championship has automatic bids, whoever's there from the top 4 conferences, then it's irrelevant. Then you don't have a Lane Kiffin saying, ew, I just assume we're not there.
Yeah, I agree. Well, he fixed that with their showing in Gainesville last week.
I get it. But what I'm saying is, prior to when he made the comment, you have to do one of two things. Again, the FBS has done it right for a long time. It's 16, right, Brett?
Yeah.
And it's been 16 forever. And they do it correctly. Why does the FCS try so hard to just not get it right? Do you know what I mean? Because here's the deal. If you took the top two from in the conference championships, ACC, SEC, and this is obviously changing. Yes, John David, I see your comment. You know what? If that's the case, you need to petition Notre Dame to come on over to the weak-ass Big 12 and just see if they can win it every year. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But I don't want to hear from somebody who has the 78th highest strength of schedule acting like they're that good. I can't take it. Like, you got to play somebody. I
I'm
know.
pulling for your Irish, John David. I'm pulling for
Listen,
them.
I do
Looking
too.
good.
But the thing that I can't handle is you're not sitting there playing rivalry games week after week after week, playing 8 straight conference games where every single game means something. That's one of the beefs I have with the FCC. Why are they playing the Citadel in week 12? Why are they playing the, whatever in week Mercer? Like, why do you do that? Like, I don't understand that.
Our 8 conference games is absolutely brutal because of who. I mean, look, let me tell you one other thing. Let me bring this up too. There's some rumors out there that, now keep in mind, South Carolina's 8-3. They play Clemson in Columbia this weekend, their rivalry. I think they're going to beat Clemson. A lot of other people do. They're thinking if they beat Clemson, they'll jump into the playoffs. And then I say, well, hold on a second. If Alabama don't belong, and we're both going, if Alabama beats Auburn, we'll both be 9-3. Well, guess what? Alabama beat South Carolina this year.
Right.
So South Carolina, since they're beating Clemson, Alabama played 3 fantastic games this year. And they played 3 just, what the hell was that games this year? And you know what? I look, I hate it. It doesn't hurt my feelings, yeah, but we don't deserve to be in it. I mean, we just don't. But does South Carolina?
I mean, does anybody have Notre Dame's schedule pulled up? Like, wrong one. I mean,
we're gonna move on.
Isn't Army and Navy both bowl eligible?
They are.
So that's 2
I will say
6.
this: there's only one team in the playoffs right now that's got more quality wins than Alabama. Problem is, we got 3 unquality losses. I mean, one iffy, one that was a great rivalry game. Tennessee's really good, and then last week was just a total clown show.
But Brett, as I've said this, and I agree with this in the Big Ten. I agree with this in the Big 12. I agree with this in the ACC. If you lose to a rank like Georgia lost to Alabama, I don't believe the college football playoff should hold that against them.
Right.
Okay. And through the SEC schedule, Big 12, Big 10, ACC. If you drop another game, I'll give you a mulligan.
Right.
But you lose that 3rd game, and I'm just using Alabama as an example. You lose that 3rd game to Oklahoma, you're out. It is what it is. And I don't.
But again, you can't. You just can't create a university from over here in West Texas and say you're in. You've got to find somebody to replace them with.
I get that.
Go ahead and take that comment down, Eric.
Oh, sorry.
What we're gonna do is I want to hit one more topic, but I don't want to do it because I just want it to turn into a bitch fest. I want to bring this up because I honestly believe that this has to be brought under control. There was 2 games that I watched this last weekend that calls into question, what are we doing here, guys? One of them was the Colorado game when that Kansas defensive player took a direct, you can call it what you want, but
it was a shot.
Pass the eyeball test by any means. He went for Sanders' knee. He went to take him out.
Yep.
And it's only by luck that Sanders did not have his leg planted at the time that they hit that he's even playing football today.
Yeah, he'd be done.
That should have been automatic disqualification, number 1. Number 2, Alabama playing at Oklahoma. There was a pass where Alabama scored a touchdown in the 4th quarter where the referee was standing at the line of scrimmage at the time the ball was hiked, did not throw a flag, ran down the sideline, watched, 30, 40-yard pass, got completed for a touchdown, only when he saw that the guy caught the ball in the end zone.
He throws a flag.
15 yards down the line of scrimmage, he calls what is the equivalent of a pre-snap offsides.
Correct.
For an illegal formation. So
right.
You're telling me that he doesn't throw the flag until a 40-yard pass is completed in the end zone for a touchdown, and then he calls an illegal formation. As we talk about football and the money getting introduced into college football and all that stuff, and we talk about how money can bring bad things into sports, they have got to address officiating. And I'm not just talking bad call. I'm talking about there's 2 cases where they legitimately can sit down, these officials, and say, what in the hell were you thinking?
Correct.
Because to me, it's damaging the legitimacy of these games.
And there was actually 3 when I turned off Bama. I started watching Auburn and Texas A&M, and keep in mind, I hate Auburn. It is what it is. That's our rival. Auburn got a egregious call against them, an offensive pass interference that sent that game to overtime. Now Auburn ended up winning it in overtime, but if it wasn't for that call, the game never even gets to overtime. It was about as bad as the Alabama call. And again, I pulled up the salaries for these college refs and the NFL refs, and I knew with all the UFL news, we would probably need to touch on this subject next week, but I'll print it out. And like you said, something's got to be done because there's no accountability. There's they finally, something came out today where the NCAA basically said no comment about that Alabama-Oklahoma call. Well, that ain't good enough. There's so much money on the line. We need to know that there's consequences, that guys are getting suspended, they're getting fined. Are they digging into these refs' financials? There's just some of these calls aren't bad calls. They're like, a kid can see this,
and the thing that I've always said as a coach for almost 30 years, the coaches, the players put all this work in. Take the fans out of it. We're going to be mad either way. You put hours and hours of work in. In football, it's preseason practice, spring practice in college, and you do all this work to get to these points. When an official makes, in the Colorado case, in the Alabama case, an egregious call, that coach, the coaching staff, and the players, they have to live with that. That is changing. Either in Alabama's case, I'm not saying that Alabama's going to win that game, but it, to me, took them out of the playoff. That official goes home and he sleeps perfectly at night because he hasn't put that kind of work in. He hasn't put that kind of sweat, blood equity into getting to that point that they have. He just wonders, where am I going next week? I hate to bag on officials because
there's no transparency. None.
It's like these officials just do what they do, and there is absolutely no penalty for doing that, good or bad. Like I look at it this way. I believe there should be bonuses for officials that do really well, and I believe there should be fines for officials that do really bad. Because, and we talk about this in the NFL all the time. I will watch a quarterback get a finger on them. Here comes a 15-yard roughing the passer. Yeah. I'll watch another quarterback get absolutely decleated and killed and nothing.
Right.
If there was more consistency, the Shedeur Sanders hit that Ed alluded to, that was disgusting.
Yeah, that was one of the worst ones I've seen in quite a while, actually.
And as Ed said, he is damn lucky that his cleat was not planted in the ground.
Yeah.
Or Colorado would be terrible. I mean, that was disgusting.
Not only does that ruin Colorado's season, but 100%. It also potentially ruins his career in the NFL.
Correct, because that was dirty.
That was a dirty hit, and I cannot believe that there hasn't been some sort of
like a statement or anything.
So but there should have been some. You can still levy a penalty after the fact to a player. He should have been suspended.
Yeah, it was so obviously an attempt to injure too.
What I
It
do
wasn't
not,
just somebody like, I'm gonna knock the mess out of you. No, he was trying to injure him.
what I've never understood about the game of football, the game of basketball, the game of baseball is why are officials untouchable? You know, you can give
They are.
the Angel Hernandez in baseball.
Oh,
Oh my God. Angel Hernandez, I could show you clip after clip after clip of that dude just screwing guys over, either up at the plate, whatever. Or in basketball, I'm an Iowa State fan. I have seen so many calls. Now, there were a couple that the Big 12 came out and said, that was a bad call. Sorry. But they don't reverse wins and losses. So it's really kind of irrelevant when Iowa State plays Kansas. You know, Kansas is – I've never been around where Iowa State's gotten the benefit of the call against Kansas. But in football, like to me, I realize they probably have their meetings and they probably have all these things where they get together and the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC say, here's our standard. This is a hold. This is not a hold, so on and so forth. But those plays, as that alluded to with Shedeur Sanders, that is not a play that you have to show in some officiating meeting to say there should be a flag thrown here. The ball is gone. I mean, and he clearly goes right at the knees, flips him ass over elbow. How does that happen and not get a flag? Can you imagine?
And he was pointing his helmet at him. I mean, he was trying
it was
to
a
get
target. It was a target. I mean,
well, anyway, like I said, I wanted to bring that up, and we had some really good comments from the fans and from you guys and everything. But we're going to move on to our picks.
Oh, we got the picks. Here we go. I got them here.
So Eric, you run the board.
I've got them. Let me bring the first one up here.
We are going to start off week 14 in college.
Rivalry game, 3.5 spread.
Friday night game. Nebraska 6-5 is at Iowa 7-4. Iowa is 3.5-point favorites. Iowa has won 8 of the last 9 meetings.
When was the last one though? Was it last week? Was it last year? Did Nebraska beat Iowa
2
last
years
year?
ago, Nebraska won. Last year, Iowa beat Nebraska. I think it was 16-14 or something.
Yeah, it was
close. A hell of a game in Lincoln, but 2 years ago they won in Iowa City, which I happened to be at.
Well, I will tell you, I was just in the game, at the game this weekend in Lincoln for Wisconsin, or as Chad would call them, the Wisconsin piss throwers, and Nebraska. And I will tell you what, I'm not a huge Nebraska fan. I'm not a Wisconsin fan. Obviously, I'm an Iowa State fan, but it was a hell of a venue to watch a college football game, and Nebraska absolutely boat raced Wisconsin. If I didn't know any better, and I listened to the Nebraska fans sitting around me, or I was there with a friend of mine who's a huge Nebraska fan, after watching that performance and watching what Raiola was able to do and how they were able to convert, I wouldn't have any problem picking Nebraska, but every one of them to a man said, man, Iowa's going to kill us. So I've got to take the words of Nebraska fans, and I'm going to take Iowa here, Ed.
So before I hear from Brett, I'll preclude my pick.
Yeah, they would never be able to figure it out with your jacket.
Yeah. Wow. Weird.
You mean he's not taking Nebraska?
Who you taking, Brett?
Clean sweep. Give me Iowa.
Is that who Chad had as well?
Chad has Iowa as well.
Man, he can't even take his own team. Coward.
Okay, Eric, we got next.
All right, we have
number 7 Tennessee at 9-2. They are 10.5-point favorites going to Vandy, who is 6-5. Tennessee has lost their last 2 road games to Arkansas and Georgia. So can Vandy make it 3 in a row? What do you
No.
think, Brett?
Tennessee, they're going to have at least half the fans there in Nashville. They always do. Unfortunately, give me the. I'd like to see Vanderbilt upset them. And Vandy will probably hang in there. It's probably going to be a close, very good game, but I just don't think they have enough.
I was remiss. Henry took Iowa, Marty took Iowa, Albert took Nebraska, and Mike took Nebraska. So we got a clean sweep. But what I also should have brought up before we started our picks, and I just can't believe that I didn't bring it up again this time. The big dog.
Oh, God.
The big dog, once again, heading into this week. God, isn't he cute? Wolf.
Who has found his way into second place?
I am 87 and 57, picking the tough games that we pick. We don't pick no joke games. We got Eric 2 games behind me, and Chad's 3 games behind me.
Where's Brett at?
Brett's 10 games above 500. He's
I didn't have a good week.
Yeah, Brett didn't have as good a week. So we've got Henry taking Tennessee. We got John taking Vandy. We got Marty taking Vandy. Albert's taking Vandy. So, Eric, who you taking?
If we picked against the spreads, which I have advocated for, by the way, if we were picking against the spreads, I would take Vandy.
Right.
I actually want Vanderbilt to win. But I do think Tennessee still has a lot riding on this. They cannot afford to slip up at Vanderbilt. So I'm going with Tennessee.
So even though our Mike took Tennessee, so our viewers, it's about a 50-50 split between Tennessee and Vandy, but the astute panel here has a clean sweep for Tennessee, including Chad. Next game.
South Carolina and
number
Clemson.
16, South Carolina at 8-3 is at number 12, Clemson, who's 9-2. South Carolina is 5-1 against the spread the last 6 games, and they are also 4-0 against the spread on the road this year.
Who you got, Ed?
I'm taking South Carolina with that bit of interesting news.
Brett
Mike agrees with me. He's taking South Carolina.
Go Gamecocks.
Well, I am going to make it a clean sweep with South Carolina.
And Chad took South Carolina as well. So now I almost feel like I should have put an invite out there for John to join us as a guest picker on this one, because I'm sure this is the one that's got his attention. Number 5, Notre Dame, 7.5-point favorites at 10-1, traveling to USC, who is 6-5. USC has had a fourth quarter lead in every game so far this year. They've got wins over Nebraska and UCLA the last 2 weeks. So who we taking, Eric?
Well, this was a game where I'm actually, even though John consistently hammers on me week after week after week.
I would say that John probably thinks you deserve it, though. So
I don't think John's a fan.
John doesn't know me very well. Otherwise, he would be a fan. However, when you look at the statistics from USC, there's just something off about them, their ability to finish, something.
Obviously, if you've got a fourth quarter lead,
right? I mean,
every game you've played this year,
and you know, when I've watched a couple of their games, and I can't really put. It's like they're holding on to a handful of water, hoping to keep it. It just seeps out. So I've got to go with Notre Dame. Notre Dame on this one.
Notre Dame by 10. USC scores a late touchdown and does not recover the onside kick. Notre Dame wins by 3.
Chad took Notre Dame as well. Next game, we've got Auburn 5-6, traveling to number 13 Alabama at 8-3, who's on the cusp of the college football playoffs. 8.5. What is it? I should have my glasses on. Is that
11.5?
11.5. Excuse me. 10-bet on this game.
Brett, what do you think, bud?
Alabama's the first team out in this week's college football playoff by the committee, which means a win and a stumble by any of the 12 teams would put them in at 9-3. Will that happen, Brett?
I'm going to tell you, I really don't know how the team's going to react after last weekend. And then we lost our leader on defense, the middle linebacker, the signal callers out for the season. And Auburn has blown a lot of games this year. I bet they've had I know they blew the Oklahoma game. There's been a couple others. And here recently, that quarterback, Thorne, has played a lot better. And Auburn gives Alabama absolute hell. But Alabama has won 7 straight in Tuscaloosa against Auburn. And, oh, yeah, fuck Auburn. Alabama with the win.
I'm like, he is doing a big setup here just to select Alabama.
God, I hope they win.
Well, I hope. I mean, I'm taking Alabama.
That's the first time I've really cussed on the show, by the way. But somebody had to do it because Chad's not on tonight.
Chad's not on tonight, so somebody had to swear.
Yeah.
I'm taking Alabama only because, you know, I don't want them to burn down Kalen DeBoer's house. There's multiple memes out there. You know, Auburn does look better. However, I watched Auburn play, I believe it was Arkansas, and I can't get that vision out of my head. So I'm taking Bama.
So we've got a clean sweep by Alabama, but our panel of fans here, Albert took Auburn. Marty took Alabama, but Mike took Auburn. Henry took Auburn.
Guys, we need to add the Michigan Ohio State game just for Mike. Just for Mike.
It's funny how everybody on our panel takes Alabama, and a lot of everybody that's listening or watching.
Listen, my thought process goes to they can't possibly play as bad as they did in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Now I think, oof.
I mean, this is Alabama, man. You can't possibly play that bad again.
I'm going to tell you what, if he loses to Auburn this weekend,
it's game, set, match, man. They're going to fire him.
The fan base will be done with him.
He's going to want to go back to Washington.
Yep.
I am taking Alabama as well. I don't know if I said that, but
you did. Next game, Arkansas, Missouri.
6-5 Arkansas is at number 24 Missouri at 8-3. Missouri's 3-point favorites. Missouri has won 8 of the last 10 games versus Arkansas.
Russell's not on tonight. We're not seeing him in the comments. He's a big Pig Suey fan. He might be out playing poker tonight. He's big.
Russell was on a little bit earlier. I saw him on earlier.
Oh, was he?
Well, I'm with John. I'm taking Mizzou.
Ooh, Ed's got Missouri. Chad's got Missouri as well, right?
Yep.
What do you got, Brett?
And these two fan bases don't like each other. It is definitely a rivalry. Arkansas just always seems to find a way to lose these games, but Missouri has just not been the Missouri we thought they were going to be. Missouri with a late field goal.
Eric?
I'm going Missouri, but my head is just spinning from Brett's logic.
Brett gives you every reason to think
that he's going with Arkansas,
to win the game.
And then he totally pivots and says Missouri by a field goal. Like,
I tell you what, no, give me Arkansas. I want Arkansas. We haven't changed enough the pick yet. Give me the Razorbacks.
All right. I mean, he's like, Arkansas usually loses these games, but Missouri's not the Missouri we thought they were going to be. I mean,
I'm starting to write out Arkansas.
Yeah.
Give me Missouri.
John taking Missouri. Albert taking Missouri. Henry's taking Mizzou. Marty's taking Mizzou.
I'm the only one taking Arkansas.
Albert and Mike are teaming up with you, Brett.
This was one of my toss-up games, but as soon as Brett said Arkansas, I had Missouri checked. I'm like, I'm going to stay with that. I'm just going to stay with that.
Probably a safe pick.
Next game, we got number 3 Texas, 5-point favorites at 10-1. Traveling to College Station, Texas A&M, 8-3, number 20 in the latest rankings. Texas, the winner of Texas A&M is the SEC, goes to the SEC title game.
And plays Georgia.
A&M wins, could potentially be one of 2 3-loss SEC teams to make the college football playoffs.
Texas.
I want Texas A&M to win so bad because they have such a complex with Texas, and they absolutely cannot stand their fan base. I just don't think they have enough. Give me Texas, and the spread's probably about right.
I'm taking Texas as well, as is Henry, but we've got Texas A&M by Albert, Marty, Mike. So Texas A&M's got some fans out there. Final game for college. Kansas State, 8-3. At the team that's making a late surge, number 17 Iowa State, 9-2, 2.5-point favorites. Iowa State hasn't covered the spread in 4 of the last 5 games, but they're playing at home, and I think that's going to be the difference. I'm taking Iowa State.
Give me Kansas State.
Eric's using the old anti-gank, huh?
No, here's the deal. This isn't an anti-gank. It is what it is. We're sitting at 9-2. Our defense has been riddled with injuries. You know, when I look at these other teams, like I don't know Alabama's injury situation like Brett would, but I know Iowa State's injury situation. We are riddled with injuries across the defense. We have struggled. Our offense has had to try to keep up. I mean, you know, and last week against Utah, we found every single way that we could to allow Utah, who only had 1 offensive touchdown, yet they managed to score 28 points. We're not right on the defensive side. It's causing a lot of pressure on the offensive side. I'm not even using the whole gink to try to for Iowa State to win. I truly believe we do not have enough to stop Kansas State. I just don't. Our defense is just shredded with injuries. It's just awful. So
we've got Chad's taking Iowa State, Eric's taking Kansas State. So what do you got, Brett?
Kansas State by a field goal.
I don't think it's going to be that.
State could absolutely
Are you feeling
win.
good about that, Eric?
What's that?
Are you feeling good about that?
You know, I do, because I've watched every game Iowa State's played this year. And the first 2 weeks, we put up a donut. We hold Iowa in the second half to 6 points. And that's where the injury started. We lost Bacon that week. And every week after that, it was like we were down. Our linebacking core was down to guys that weren't even necessarily on the depth chart. I mean, we were starting to true freshmen in Bo Goodwin. I mean, and linebackers in John Haycock's defense are everything. And when you have a bunch of freshmen and sophomores starting at linebacker, it's just not enough. It is what it is. I mean, hey,
I'm not feeling too good about my pick. Henry's the only one that agrees with me, but John, Chris, Albert, Marty, Mike, I'll take Kansas State. And just for the record, I have a 2-game lead on Eric, and I have 3 on Chad. Actually, it should be 3 and 4, respectively. But when I found out that 49ers had Brock Purdy out, Bosa's out, a whole slew of players out, I text the esteemed panel and I say, the game hasn't been played. I've found out that 3 or 4 of the main guys are out with injury. I'd like to change my pick. And holy cow, you would have thought, man.
So here, just for the people that are watching, we do our picks on Wednesday. We have no idea what happens Thursday and Friday. There have been several games where people are questionable, and then on Sunday they're deemed out. Nobody has complained. I've gotten no text from Brett saying, hey, I want to change my pick because so-and-so just got ruled out. But who texts us and said, well, I want to change my pick?
I will say, Marty, Albert and Marty, they're asking about, we're not going to make an official pick, but Albert's asking about what about Army-Navy?
I'll take Army.
I will take Army as well. My dad is a 20-year retired from the Army, and I've watched the Army-Navy game religiously since I was probably 8 years old. And so it's a game that's near and dear to my heart. And I've been an Army fan through thick and thin when it comes to these 2 teams. So I'm Army all the way.
So I kind of have to be, because my grandpa, Ed's dad, is in that situation. So yeah, the Army-Navy game is pretty special.
Are we going just for the panel for the fans just pick Michigan, Ohio State, and to pacify Mike?
Okay, I'll take Ohio State. There's no picking there.
Yeah, I'll take Ohio State too.
Isn't the spread like 21 points?
Look, I'm pulling for Michigan, but it ain't gonna happen.
No,
I'm pulling for Michigan too, but it ain't gonna happen.
No,
it ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
Who do y'all got? Who does everybody got?
Ohio State and Michigan. You can go back to countless games that they've played that records don't matter. But usually these 2 teams only have a couple losses. So you can say record doesn't matter because they're always both good. This year's not the case.
No.
Michigan just doesn't have the firepower.
I 100% agree with Albert. Ohio State in a bloodbath. And
they're gonna take 3 or 4 years of frustration out on Michigan.
If Day can do it, he's gonna stick 60 on you.
Yeah, he's gonna run that score up.
We're gonna turn to the NFL, and it's gonna be an abbreviated version. And I'm gonna cover up Brett just for a little bit because I'm gonna put my factual NFL power rankings up.
Brett will still be there. He'll just be covered up.
And even Brett knows my rankings hold water because
hey, there might be some smoke coming out of that fire.
It's filled with fire, baby. Filled with fire. I've got Kansas City continuing to drop. I've got Detroit. Of course, they moved up to the number 1 slot. last week when Kansas City went down finally. I kind of had to think a while between Buffalo and Philly. I ultimately went with Buffalo, but I think Philly could have just as easily been a 2-3 mixed match with Buffalo. Kansas City continuing to not play good. In fact, they had to take Carolina to overtime, and it looked
That
like
was
a
gross.
funeral. It looked like a funeral in the post game in the locker room when Coach Reed was talking to the team. I mean, the players looked like they were literally at a funeral because
That
they're
was
getting so
gross.
frustrated that they can't put better games together at this point in the season. So I've got them dropping another 4-hole. Baltimore, I'm continuing to drop Baltimore just because I just don't think they have the defense to hang. Again, you see what happens when Lamar doesn't quite have it or the offense isn't putting the points on the board. Their defense can't bail them out. So Minnesota, are they too high at number 5? Maybe.
Yes.
But as we always say, when it comes to division rivalry games, you just try to survive because the teams know each other so well that when you say a W is a W, when it comes to division games, a W is a W. So I'll take it. Green Bay at 7. Pittsburgh, I slid back a little bit. Chargers, even though they lost their game against the Ravens, I still think they put on a pretty good showing, and I think that they're going to go into Atlanta this week and put one on the Falcons. Falcons are actually one of my teams that dropped out of the top 16 because they're just, we can get into a discussion about Atlanta later. Green Bay is not going to leapfrog Minnesota in my eyes. Not until they play again because Packers, they went in a 4-week stretch where 3 out of the 4 games that they won on the very last play of the game. And you know what they say about that is odds tend to catch up to you eventually. So I'd say they're about ready to drop a game here soon to kind of even that score a little bit. Denver, you're starting to hear them all talk about Bo Nix as being the Rookie of the Year candidate now.
Here's one for you, Ed. Denver's kind of high in this ranking, aren't they? Don't you think?
That Bo Nix, man, I'm gonna tell you what, Bo's been impressive. You got to give him credit.
But here's the deal.
I would normally I would agree with that, but here's my thinking. You look at number 11 Arizona. What kind of a game was that at Seattle? They looked like crap.
Right.
Houston Texans, number 12. What in the hell's happened to Houston? Houston looks like dog crap lately. They're not playing good football at all.
What's happened to Washington?
Washington Redskins at number 13. They were labeled to be a potential Super Bowl contender. Look out, here we come. And now Washington can't win their way out of a paper bag.
I want, before you finish this, because you brought it up, and we're kind of on abbreviated time, I want, and too bad Chad isn't here, I want everybody in this panel and everybody in the comment list over here.
Before you say anything, Eric, Albert, that was the word that come to my mind, a couple words that come to my mind. I will agree, dog crap was a little strong. Washington is not dog crap. I agree with you 100%. What I meant to say was Washington, if you look at the way they played the first 8 games or so, they are a shell of their former self these last 3 games. They are going downhill fast.
They're going backwards.
Okay.
They
Now that you
lost
say
to the
that,
Cowboys
now that you say that,
at home.
I remember people on this panel were really high on Jaden Daniels. Right, Brett? Okay.
Absolutely.
And I remember people on this panel all over Caleb Williams because, well, geez, he's not doing this, he's not doing that.
It wasn't me. I'm scared our offensive line was going to get him killed.
Whoa. Just take it easy. And none of these other quarterbacks, Bo Nix, was not even necessarily in our conversations earlier in the year.
Okay,
What?
yeah, but who was out of all four of us? Who was high on Bo Nix?
Brett.
Exactly, Brett.
Let me finish. Let me finish. I have said from the get-go, you cannot take these. What's that? Is your car on fire? Oh my God!
I'm telling you, it was the smoke from the flame.
It was the smoke from the power rankings, man. It's just,
I have said this from the beginning. When people on this panel were like, "Oh, Caleb Williams," I'd have taken Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. No questions asked. And I said, listen. There is going to be ups and downs. There's going to be ebbs and flows. Guess what? Caleb Williams is really ticking up. He has put – I know that they're not winning, and that's fine. I didn't expect the Bears to be good. Some of these other people are like, oh, Bears
No, I've got a close friend that's a Vikings fan that I go and see every day, and we talked about it. He said, look, Brett, he said, you're right. Y'all are 2 offensive linemen and 1 or 2 defensive linemen away. He said, you're right. He said, that Caleb's coming on. But he said, you know what? Y'all will never win with that coach. Y'all got to get a new coach. And I said, boy.
That's going to happen. But what I'm saying is now we see Jaden Daniels, the last 3 games, 78.5 QBR rating, blah, 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 blah. They only had – what did they say? 80 yards against the Dallas Cowboys in like the second half or something like that. Anyway, what I'm saying is this, and I've said this from the get-go. You can't look at a 3-game snapshot of Caleb Williams and say, he's terrible, Jaden Daniels is the man. I'd have taken him over a Caleb Williams. Now, you get to 3rd year, and I use that criteria with Justin Fields. When you get to a 3rd year, he was doing the same things over and over again. This past Sunday against Minnesota, a good defense, I think we would all agree with that. He made plays and he made throws into tight windows that I would argue 20 to 25 of the quarterbacks in the NFL do not take.
I agree.
He made a couple throws.
Agreed.
He made a couple throws that I think, because I remember one of them was Harrison Smith. He made one throw that I don't think the defensive backs
thought he could make.
Thought that the ball could be thrown that hard because he literally threw the ball past Harrison Smith, and they were like, how did he not knock that ball down?
I'll give you another example. When the Bears got within 3 and recovered the onside kick, that pass to Kellen Moore in the middle of the field,
right,
over 2 linebackers, that's a pass that the confidence level you can see once they get rid of Waldron. And I said from the get-go, after the first 3 games, like Waldron does not get it. That's a pass that Caleb Williams has become confident enough to throw because Brown, and I don't know if he's interim OC, if he's going to, because Eberflus going to get fired. I hope anyway.
Right.
But you see the confidence of Caleb Williams. He threw a pass when he rolled out of the pocket. He threw a pass down the right side of the field.
Yeah.
Dumped it in over in the middle. He made plays this week that I'm like, those are NFL plays. Those are top flight plays.
There was one of them that was Patrick Mahomes 2.0.
Yeah,
The one you're talking about where he was running full speed and jumped and threw 40-yard teardrop in the basket.
Yes.
So anyway, while these two are creaming over the Chicago Bears again, let's talk about I'll leave you with this. My bubble teams that dropped out of the top 16 from last week, San Francisco. I can only prop them up for so long. They're 5-6. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to recover.
No.
They dropped out. Atlanta Falcons dropped out. They just don't look good at all. The Rams had another opportunity to make noise in the division, and they dropped a game. I'm done talking about the Bengals. They're 4-7. All they talk about, it kind of become the new Jets.
Right.
Where everybody wants to keep saying the Bengals got a shot. They're 4-7. They don't have a shot. So I'm done with my rankings. Same way with the Colts. So now that the rankings are over with, the bubble teams are over with, let's talk about the important thing right here. Daniel Jones signing.
Oh, God.
Smart. Albert.
There's our.
So you will see in a post I did on Facebook, my eyes are wide open on this.
I still can't believe it. I mean, I really can't.
But you guys know, and you can attest, the minute that the Giants said they were going to release Daniel Jones, what did I say?
Yeah,
I said the Vikings.
You called it.
You'll sign him, because when you look at the Vikings just one short year ago, when they were in contention and their quarterback went down, they had no plan B at all. So they bring in Dobbs, who was a floater, was a backup for a reason.
Yeah, serviceable backup.
Lightning in a bottle for 1 week. Everybody thought he was going to be the next coming.
Right.
Defenses saw a little film, and he was done. So this year, with the Vikings being a 9-2, Sam frickin' Darnold has a bad throwing hand. He's been messing with it now for a couple weeks. They have no alternative. So this makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
It's going to take Daniel Jones a couple weeks to learn the playbook. There's no hurry to get him in to any game, so we don't have to worry about that. It's almost like better to get somebody in when you have time than to just bring him in like they did with Dobbs and throw him in to the game and he has no freaking clue what's going on.
Well,
so Daniel Jones is probably nothing more than a Plan B insurance policy for the Vikings. They had to pay him a whole $350,000 league minimum because he's still on the hook with the Giants to pay his salary. So to me, Daniel Jones is nothing but a rental to get him through the rest of the season before J.J. McCarthy comes back. And will Sam Darnold stay with the Vikings? Who knows? But Daniel Jones isn't going to sign with the Vikings next year for 10 million or whatever. The Vikings are going to have enough big contracts signed. They got to have the rookie contract at quarterback to make it all work. So J.J. McCarthy, come hell or high water, is the starter.
The bad thing for Daniel Jones, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. However, he's not
been in a terrible situation.
Being at the Giants, man, I'm like, you got to give the guy a pass. The problem is the contract that the New York Giants signed him to has totally screwed him.
Yeah.
You know, the Vikings pick him up on the $350,000 deal because the Giants are picking. But what about next year?
Does he even sign with a team next year?
That's my point. to even get on as a backup. Because here's the deal. I think Daniel Jones is more than serviceable as a backup.
You know who will probably sign him? You know who will probably sign him? It's surely y'all, it's done come to you. Jerry Jones.
Right. Right. But to me, you know, Minnesota has all the pieces in place. The bad part about it is I don't believe that Sam Darnold can overtake the Lions or the Philadelphia Eagles.
I agree.
The problem is if you go to JJ, and Ed would be able to talk to this more than you and I would as Bears fans. If you have Jefferson and Addison and you have Jones in the backfield and Hawkinson at the tight end, are you really going to go to J.J. McCarthy and not be willing to take a step back if he has a rookie quarterback type of year, the ups and downs we've talked about with Daniels, Williams, you know, Nix threw for 70 yards or 80 yards in a game. Now we're talking about him like, oh my God, Nix is amazing. I mean, and Daniel started out hot. Now he's got a 78.5 rating in the last 3 games. We were down on Williams, but all of a sudden Williams is throwing for 300 plus yards. And he's, you know, I mean, so do you believe, Ed, my question to you, one, do you believe J.J. McCarthy can come in and be even a semi-dude? 2, do you believe Minnesota is willing with the Jeffersons, Addison, Hawkinson, Jones to take that chance? Darnold's not going to get him to a Super Bowl. You know that, and I know that. But is J.J. McCarthy going to do that? And how long is it going to take him to get them to that point, if he even can? I mean, the dude didn't exactly come from a program that loved to throw the ball and read defenses that way. What say you?
Here's the problem.
I love that.
The Vikings messed around and had to pay a quarterback more money than he was worth for the last few years because that was the going rate. What they had to pay him, Kirk Cousins, what they had to pay him prevented them from being able to get the depth at offensive line, to be able to sign people to the offensive line, to be able to get defensive linemen in, you name it, because they were throwing so much money into the quarterback position. Face it, look at the Washington Commanders or Redskins, however you want to call them. Jalen Daniels offered them the opportunity to be good instantly because with a rookie contract, they could bring in all the position players and make it work under the cap. Same way with Jalen Hurts. All those guys before now they've paid Jalen Hurts, but you get what I'm saying. All these rookie contracts, these teams that have the luxury, the Brock Purdy with the 49ers have allowed them to sign all these guys to huge contracts. Now, eventually you got to pay the piper, but it allows you a 3 or 4 year window to actually make a legitimate run at a championship. So now you've got Minnesota sitting there and they're creaming over J.J. McCarthy because they look at his rookie contract and they know that they can go out there now and they can sign position players that if J.J. McCarthy works out and he's a serviceable quarterback, more than serviceable quarterback, that they can get strong enough that they can have a legitimate opportunity for a championship. So now here's the problem. J.J. McCarthy comes next year. Everybody, I always say it, everybody always says, oh, rebuild. They need to go into a complete rebuild.
But they're not in that position.
Players on the team that are getting a year older every time you do a rebuild. And the Vikings if they want to win now, they need that rookie contract. But if they want an insurance policy, Sam Darnold's making $10 million this year. After the year he's had, and they're 9-2, do you think Sam Darnold comes back to the Vikings for $10 million next year? Not
Nope.
a chance. Do you think Daniel Jones is going to come back to the Vikings next year for $10 million? Not a chance, because you got teams like the Raiders and teams like that are just, they need a quarterback of some kind that they're going to overpay. So Minnesota's going to live, eat, and die by J.J. McCarthy next year. So they basically have no choice this year but to try and go all in with Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. And I'm sorry, it just, when you look at the way, it's a long season. So Philadelphia looks unbeatable right now. Detroit looks unbeatable right now. But all it takes is a couple injuries at key positions to knock these teams down a few rungs, that you've got to keep pace. And so far they've been able to do that. And at 9-2, one game behind Detroit, all it takes is Detroit to have a string of bad luck like the Vikings had, where they dropped 2 games in 4 days. Who knows? So, but yeah, the Vikings finally get an opportunity at a rookie contract. They're going to stay with J.J. McCarthy. The only way they don't is if J.J. McCarthy's knee just doesn't come out of it.
Right. Well, the bad part about it is, I could be wrong, I just don't see the Vikings being able to, in the playoffs. Maybe they beat, let's do it this way. Let's give the Detroit Lions the number 1 seed and give the Philadelphia the number 2 seed. So that means Minnesota is going to have to beat a Green Bay, Seattle maybe, and I think they can more than do that. Do you foresee them then, beating a Seattle, a Green Bay, or whoever it might be, a Tampa Bay, and then going to Philadelphia and winning? Maybe.
Well, say it's a pipe dream. The bigger question would be, do you see Minnesota being able in back-to-back weeks, being able to go through Philadelphia and Detroit?
That's what I'm getting at. Do you trust the Sam Darnold enough to lead the team that way? Because here's the deal. If you take Sam Darnold out of the equation, now, this past week, he didn't have any turnovers. I honest to God thought when the Bears got it close, Sam Darnold's going to throw some stupid interception. He's going to fumble the ball. He's going to do something like that he's been doing the last, couple, 2 or 3 weeks. And it never happened. But is a perfect Sam Darnold still good enough to beat those teams? That's my question. Do you believe, as a Viking fan, that good Sam Darnold is still good enough to beat those teams?
Well, the ball can bounce funny sometimes, and if you look at the first game against Detroit, it took a field goal on the last play of the game to beat Minnesota. So, who knows? That's why they play the game. But I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and say I expect them to make it to the Super Bowl, but they're at least going to have a chance.
Right, because right now, and maybe you guys, what I see the NFC Championship, Detroit and Philadelphia. I see the AFC Championship, Buffalo and Kansas City. Baltimore could. The thing that irritates me about Baltimore is if their offense is not on, their defense cannot hold anybody. They can't hold anybody. So I can't trust them. Could Baltimore easily be in the AFC Championship? Sure. But I can't trust them right now. When I say Detroit, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Kansas City. Do you see Minnesota in that class right now?
Right now, I would say they're not in the class of Philadelphia. They're not in the class of Detroit. But with Detroit being in the same division, knowing each other as well as they do, Philadelphia and Detroit, I would say probably not. But as far as Buffalo and Kansas City goes, Kansas City doesn't scare anybody right now.
No. They didn't
Kansas
scare
City
Carolina
doesn't
for
scare
crying out
anybody
loud.
right now. And Buffalo, I gotta say I'm eating crow because I didn't think Buffalo was going to be as good as they've been this year. So,
And what did I tell you at the beginning of the year? Josh Allen is going to go like this, and there's going to be a big S on his chest. I mean, now, can Josh Allen continue to do that? I don't know. But right now, to me, I mean, would anybody disagree? Brett, I'll pose it to you. Would you disagree, Brett, if I said you could easily see Detroit, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Kansas City in the championship games?
Oh yeah, I've said that for a while. Especially, I don't think there's anyone in the NFC that can beat Detroit or Philadelphia. But now they can fall off. I mean, Philadelphia.
Right. I'm just saying right now. I mean,
No.
This week, Philadelphia could get dog stomped by Baltimore. I'm just saying right now. That's, Albert. Albert says here, Buffalo's window of opportunity is closing.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, Albert, I agree with you with this current team. But see, there's a difference. There's a difference between a Buffalo and a Chicago, or a Buffalo and a Minnesota, or a Buffalo and a, whoever. As long as you have Josh Allen playing at the level that he plays, windows don't close. Kansas City, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, your window does not necessarily close. It may not look as open in certain years, but it does not close. When you have a San Francisco, with Brock Purdy, he's not a terrible quarterback. He's not Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. You look at windows opening and closing because of who is behind center. I agree that Buffalo's window will not close until one of two things. Josh Allen leaves or Josh Allen starts to age, and we're like, ooh, Josh Allen's not the Josh Allen we know from before. To me, Buffalo's window is open 100% as long as Josh Allen is there. Do you agree, Ed? Do you agree, Brett? I mean, their window's open as long as Josh Allen is there. If Josh Allen was in Minnesota right now, do you know what we would be talking about? How goddamn good Minnesota is and how lucky Ed is to have him. And they're probably 10-1, 11-0, and this is going to get crazy for Minnesota. It's going to be a huge party because, they haven't been to the Super Bowl since the 70s when I wasn't born and Ed was, in elementary. But, do you know what I mean? Like, that's a difference maker. Josh Allen is a difference maker. So I don't see, when they talk, if anybody ever talks about Buffalo's window closing, as long as Josh Allen is there and he's Josh Allen, along with Patrick Mahomes and or a Tom Brady. There were years where the Patriots didn't win, but we never looked at the Patriots window as closing. Guys came and went, but Tom Brady was there. So, if you have a quarterback that's one of those generational quarterbacks, your window is always open.
I am afraid, guys, we need to get to picks.
Yes, because we spent a little bit too much time on the UFL and college tonight, but yes, you're right. Let's get to picks.
Yeah, let's get to the picks. Let me take down that ticker because they only want to see the truth for so long before they want to.
Yeah. First game. Just get to the games, Ed. Just get
First
to the games.
game. First game, Miami. On Thanksgiving night, when everybody's sitting in the chair, comatose because that turkey's setting in and you're getting all sleepy. You got that Budweiser sitting next to you. You got Miami traveling into Green Bay, where Miami can't. What do they got? Like one win under 40 degrees. Like
Oh,
in the last
this
5
is a
centuries.
bloodbath. It's bad.
Miami 5-6 traveling to Green Bay, where everybody's starting to huff and puff about Miami being a late runner to the playoff race in Green Bay, who's 8-3 and 3.5-point favorites. What do you got, Brett?
Tua can't, not in this weather. It's a chance of snow and 28, 30 degrees. It don't bode well for Miami. Give me the Packers.
They're calling for half a foot of snow, man.
And
Green Bay.
We've got Chad is also taking Green Bay.
Who do you got, Ed?
I am taking Green Bay as well. Marty's taking Green Bay. Henry's got Green Bay, but Mike is out on a limb saying Miami.
Ooh, Mike. You know, I would love nothing more than to see Green Bay get beat. Trust me when I tell you.
Oh, tell me about it.
But
I'll be the
Not
biggest
so
Miami
fast, my
fan.
friend.
yeah,
I'll be the biggest Miami fan you ever see.
yeah. I'm gonna be. Even though I picked Green Bay, I am gonna be rooting for Miami.
I'm gonna be rooting for Miami and Tua,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But I mean, Tua just hasn't. 6 inches of snow. I just don't see it.
no. I mean, look. He said he wanted to get over the stereotypes and all that. I get that, son, but you're from Hawaii. You
Yeah.
understand?
Not so fast.
Not so fast, my friend.
Next game, Ed.
Next game. Oh, what did you took Green Bay, Eric?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Okay, next game we've got the LA Chargers, 1.5-point favorites at 7-4, traveling to Atlanta, who is going up in flames at 6-5. I will start off and say I am taking the Chargers, as is Chad.
Yeah, I've got the Chargers as well because I just can't trust Atlanta. I just can't trust them.
You don't ever know what time Atlanta's going to show up.
And why is that? Kirk
I don't
Cousins
know.
has all the tools available, and he was able to do those things in Minnesota. What is going on in Atlanta?
Atlanta doesn't have a great offensive line, and their defense is bipolar. The whole team is bipolar.
Gosh, I mean, I just don't understand it.
Give me Harbaugh and the Chargers.
So
I would
far,
love
we
to
got a
say-
clean sweep. Both.
I would love to say San Diego Superchargers.
Yeah, I
Totally ruined that.
I still catch myself saying San Diego Chargers all the time.
Yeah.
We've got Albert and Marty taking the Falcons, but we have Mike, Henry taking the Chargers. So, next game, Arizona 6-5,
Who did Chad take in this game, by the way?
Chargers.
No. Arizona and Minnesota.
He took Arizona.
Of course he did.
Of course he did.
Of course he did.
I got Minnesota.
Who's coming off an atrocious game. There was a big game in Seattle this last
16
weekend.
to 6.
Completely
16 to
laid an
6.
egg.
They scored 6
6-5.
points.
Oh my god.
Traveling to Minnesota, who's 3.5-point favorites at 9-2. Minnesota finally at home after 3 consecutive road games where they went 3-0. So I think the friendly confines of US Bank Stadium is going to be all they need to get the win. I got Minnesota.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that, Brett. We don't want to hear that crap.
Do I need to play? You taking Minnesota?
No.
I'm
Yes.
taking Minnesota.
We don't need to hear anything.
Okay.
Look, if we could just omit my Jets and my Kansas City picks this year, I would be right in the running for top dog,
That's your problem.
as opposed to Hein Tit.
That's
Holy
your
cow!
problem.
We got Mike, Marty, Henry, Albert, all taking the Vikings. So Chad's out on a limb. He is the only one that took.
He has to take Arizona because he said.
Oh yeah, all that
He
stuff
had-
he
he
talked,
had
he
to.
got no choice.
He
Yeah.
had to. 6-5 Seattle. 2-point favorites traveling to New York to play the New York Rogers.
Yeah. Give me Seattle.
3-8. Both
Seattle.
Chad and I both took Seattle.
Oh my God!
Are you seriously gonna? You just complained about taking the Jets, and now you're like, "Oh my God." Is this gonna be a
Seattle is more bipolar than my first wife. What are you talking about? Ah, shit.
Mike, Henry, Albert, all taking the Seahawks.
Who are you taking, Brett?
Jets.
Oh my God. Don't ever wonder why you are in last. You were last in the UFL. Now you're last in our picks. Don't ever wonder why.
I think I got a Kansas City and a Jet problem. I need to go see a therapist.
So
I
I will.
mean-
So I will put the Eric down for Seattle. Safe to say.
I said that right away.
All right, final game of the week. We got 9-2 Philadelphia heading to 8-4 Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a 3-point favorite. Chad is taking Philadelphia.
Who you got, Brett?
Philadelphia. Until they lose again, I'm gonna have to take them.
Who you got, Ed?
I'm taking Philly as well.
We got to put it on the board, fellas. What's the spread?
Oh, sorry. I
The
didn't.
spread is 3 points.
3 points.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Philadelphia.
Man, I have the check mark on Philadelphia.
We
Hey,
got,
This could be
Albert's
where
taking the Ravens. Mike's taking the Ravens. Marty's taking the Ravens.
Wow.
this is at Baltimore.
Yeah.
You know what? Give me the Ravens.
Hey, and the best two running backs in the league, Barkley versus Henry.
Now, you know why? You know why I switched?
Yeah,
'Cause
because you got to try and make up ground.
No.
It ain't got nothing to do with your expertise.
No, here's why. Baltimore's defense is top 5 against the run.
Yeah, but that Philadelphia offensive line, good God.
But I'm just saying they're top 5 against the run. If they can somehow neutralize or minimize the Philadelphia run game and the right Baltimore team shows up.
Hey, real quick, guys, what about what's his name that has been with Philadelphia forever, and he was playing lights out Sunday night, and he tore his tricep. Was it Brandon Graham? Was that him?
I believe so.
Man, that's sad, dude. He's been with them for probably 14, 15 years. I hope this isn't his last year, and I hope that they win a Super Bowl, man. I hated seeing it because they were interviewing him, right, talking about what a fantastic game he had. He looked like he was 25 years old that night, and he informed them at his locker he was out for the year that he tore his tricep.
Yeah.
I hate stuff like that.
I haven't
I
heard
agree.
this saying before. That makes that goes right in line here. Good pick. Henry's going to run wild. Cry, Eagles cry.
Albert, I hope you're right, Albert.
Hey, I hope you're right.
you're right.
I'm going for Baltimore. I hope King Henry runs for 200 yards.
I hope so. I agree with Mike, too. Lamar is going to have a good game. I hope you are correct. Marty, Mike, you're my
It's
boy.
going to be a great game, y'all. That should be a really good game.
Albert, yep, I'm in. Let's if I get this Baltimore game, that'll be solid. I like that. So,
Well,
Hey, Debbie, you can always watch it over again. We appreciate you watching every week. It's Turkey Day tomorrow. We get it. So not a big deal. You can always rewatch it.
I bet Debbie can cook, but she's never invited me to dinner. I guess it's that whole Georgia, Alabama thing.
Yeah, she doesn't want you to come to dinner.
No.
No question.
Well, we sure do appreciate everybody listening tonight and watching. We know that with all the family coming in for the holidays that you've got other things that you could have done. So we appreciate you all spending a little bit of time with us.
Yeah, we had the thing that we appreciate the most is, the comments. We had almost 300 comments tonight. I mean, that makes the show go by really well when people participate and stuff like that. And we enjoy the fans that watch. It just makes it a lot better for us. I mean, we're just dudes talking football. No different than if we were having a beer in our garages. Just bull crapping about football, whatever. And we appreciate that you guys, enjoy listening to us. I mean, we get a little wild sometimes. Brett from his deer stand. It is what it is. I mean,
I had a message during the show and said, "You're always in your truck." Laugh out loud. I just shook my head. She didn't comment on the show, but obviously she was watching it.
Right. Well, we do appreciate that for sure.
The good part about it too is the fact that we're just huge football fans. We really enjoy the college and NFL season, but we all have a passion for the UFL. And so what's going to be great is we're going to know more than get college and NFL behind us. And we're going to have a whole brand new season of the UFL and can't wait to get that started too. So I know that there's a ton of pages that have allowed us to share our show on and all of Brett's posts and my occasional posts. We sure appreciate you letting us post on your pages. We always try and keep it professional. Do we take a jab from one time to another on the post? Sure we do. That goes along with fan bases jabbing each other and stuff. So
yeah, sorry for my language tonight, but it was Auburn. Y'all got to give me a pass on that
one. So again, everybody enjoy family.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Everybody enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the football.
Subscribe to YouTube. We've got a YouTube page now, The Bottom Line Podcast. Subscribe to YouTube. Yeah. We're also on Instagram, X, and of course Facebook.
We'd always appreciate it if you give us a follow. But we really enjoy coming to you week to week. So enjoy a weekend of holiday football, everybody. And like always, we'll be here again next Wednesday night. And that is The Bottom Line. We will see you. Take it easy.